Anyway.
Hi there, good evening and welcome to your Friday night podcast for Gersnet. If you're joining us on YouTube, as always, you're very welcome and we thank you for your time. My name's Scott Patterson, should be with you for the next 30 minutes to 45 minutes, although you will clock who our guest is this evening, so that may go slightly beyond then. We should say, before we get into the intros, I should say a big thanks to our partners for the season, Forest Precision Engineering, huge supporters of the club and regularly seen in their own private hospitality area in the famous main stand at Ibrox. If you're interested in some hospitality, get in touch, hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Thanks again to our friends at Forest Precision Engineering for looking after us this season. Alex Anderson, how are you, my friend?
Not bad, Scott. Not bad, mate. You know that's a lie. You know I've been having a terrible week on the old social media. But I did a tweet yesterday saying that I thought that I really like Scott Arfield, and then I spent the rest of the day arguing with Rangers supporters, telling me we can't sign him though. We can't extend that contract. You know, it's like I know, just come on, just can I say I like the guy? And then I thought I was going to get a Piper killed on Wednesday, whenever that was as well. You know, boy getting threatened by Celtic fans because there's a video we did these week in a short promo shots for the show, and usually it's my fat face. It's usually my fat face, and I thought for a wee change, I was just walking down towards Hampden before the League Cup final, and I thought this is nice of the Rangers fans, and they've got there's a guy playing the bagpipes. You get the folk collecting for the wee lassies that do the gymnastics or whatever it is. I'll just take a wee photo, just footage of this. I'll not even say anything, just summing it up. We're going to Hampden. That's what the pod's going to be about tonight. And I didn't realise until one of the boys pointed out the other night, somebody had taken a still from it. A Celtic fan had gone in and taken a still or a close-up of the Piper's face and was like, I think this guy plays outside Parkhead. You know, we better get him. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Luckily, most of the Celtic fans come on and it was like, don't be so stupid. You know, and even if the guy does, he's just busking. You know what I mean? We're not going to give the guy a hard time. But I thought, just like the thing, I'm going to end up with a kind of Noel's house party situation where we're going to have to, you know, abandon Gersnet because it led to, you know, a guy getting done in by his own skiing do or something like that outside Janefield Street. You know, but apart from that, mate, I'm fine. And you can now see folk out there can see what you meant by we might run a bit over. This is just the introduction. I've already spoke for 10 minutes. So how are you doing yourself, Scott?
I'm really, really good. Really, really good. Yeah. We've had a busy week, parts and tours, I have to say. We just said off camera, my wee fella started playing Fun Fours at Broadwood every Saturday morning, and we need to be through there for 8:30 every Saturday morning, up before the birds, literally. But it's amazing the amount of parents that have to do it as well, and there's some real bleary-eyed punters that you see there on a Saturday morning, let me tell you. So, yeah, looking forward to that again tomorrow. So, listen, on the pod tonight, there's loads to discuss. First of all, before we get into it, I should say just literally about 10-15 minutes or so ago, the B team have made into the Scottish Cup Youth Cup final after a 3-0 victory over Hamilton Accies at Ibrox. Well done to Finlay Curtis, Jack Roberts and Cameron Cooper with 3 goals in the second half. Craig Ray is there, not for Gersnet, just because he can go to these sort of things. So I'm sure we'll get a feedback, or some sort of feedback rather, from him on Sunday night as to how that's went. But a huge result for the academy at a time, you have to say, Alex, where the footballing side of things for the club over the last couple of weeks or so has taken a bit of doing right across the board.
I don't know. I'm fairly kind of happy, not generally happy with the way things are going. There's always something to moan about at Rangers, but no, I know obviously we lost the League Cup final and that turned everything to muck. I knew it would. I think we all knew that. We knew going into that final it was going to be coats and a shaky peg time almost for either of the managers. And I think we've come out worse off than that. But I think straight away we've worked out what the problem was. You know, I think everybody's jumped on the Raskin should have started bandwagon. And, you know, honestly, I think everybody, myself included, was like, I thought Raskin might have started the day when the team came out, but I think it's been really overstated and emphasised and been a bit like a pile on afterwards as to just how certain we all were that he was going to play. And I think it's actually been shown in games subsequent to that, not just how great Raskin is as a player, but also that he is still lacking a bit of match fitness, as you would expect, because he's fallen out with standard age. And after that, I think we're just looking for, I'm scared to say this, obviously, you know, people out there are really unhappy the way things are going. They're really anti the board. It tends to be people who are louder, though, that are more anti the board. I think there's a kind of quiet majority out there who's thinking, okay, steady steady the buffs. Let's just, hold the line just now before we panic. And that's why I hope the players feel the same as me, and that I hope they're really enjoying the fact that we drew Celtic in the Scottish Cup semi-final. So we're going to get 3 more pops at them before the end of the season. Because I think, looking back at that League Cup final, they can see that Celtic aren't exactly world beaters. We really let ourselves down. We didn't turn up. We only lose the thing by a goal. Yeah. And we were just kind of forming again as a team under Michael Beale when we drew with them at Ibrox back in the very first game in January. So I don't think there's plenty to be concerned about. We're still a club rebuilding from 2012, I think. But I think I'm generally, you're scared to say happy, but I'm not ready to start sacking from board level downwards at the moment. But, if we don't, that's why I say I'm really happy we've got this opportunity to play Celtic again 3 times. Probably going to be a little more in the space of a month, and if we can get the kind of maximum benefits out of those 3 games, I think that will go a long way to getting everybody back on board the Beale bus. Yeah,
listen, there's no doubt about it that regardless of what happens between now and the end of the season, the summer is quite critical for a lot of guys, I think, at the top of the tree at the football club. Interesting to see how that pans out. Tonight we speak about the Old Firm allocation of tickets. We'll get to that towards the end of the pod. Right in the middle, we will talk about the game tomorrow at Fir Park, where Rangers, of course, travel to Motherwell for a second visit to Lanarkshire. And one thing I want to start off with, and I never usually do this on Gersnet, however, I am going to do it tonight. I'm going to refer to on this day moments. And Alec, I know you're big on your European football and you're big on the stuff that's went previously. So on this day, in 17th of March, 1993, 30 years ago, Rangers beat Bruges 2-1 at home. A very famous Scott Nisbet goal, which is probably the only thing a lot of people remember Scott Nisbet for, to be perfectly honest with you, the bounce and then over the keeper. But that was a big result for Rangers that night. Champions League victory at home, and of course Mark Hateley was sent off in the first half as well. So Rangers saw it out to win the home tie 2-1, and Bruges at that point had a lot of good players in their team. The boy Van der Elst, Verheyen was playing. They had Daniel Amakachi, who of course went on to be a real good European style striker. What's your memories of that night at Ibrox? I assume you would have been there.
No, that is my memory. Well, I was there. In fact, if I'd known we're going to talk about it, I could have pulled out the pennant that I've got. I was there. I was working in Glasgow at the time. I was still living in Ardrossan, and I'd been at the Marseille game. But I was, as I've said before, I was going back to do remedial woodwork at college later on that year. So I was paying off all my debts. I was paying off my credit cards and after my partying from the moment I'd left school into my early kind of 20s. And I was having to kind of pick and choose my games. And I was trying to get a ticket for that. I was doing it on a game-by-game basis. And I didn't get a ticket for that game. And I went out to Ibrox tragically. From the place I worked in, St Enoch Square. I got the underground out to Ibrox straight after it at like 5 o'clock, and I kicked about till about 6 or something, until it was like I had to decide I wasn't getting a ticket. I was trying to get a spare off find somebody, maybe I knew had a ticket. So I bought a pennant. And I had taken I thought I'm going home. I couldn't even afford to go to the boozer really, and just watch it in there. So I just hit the train, get back down the road to Ardrossan, and I watched it with my dad. And it's a strange thing. It's one of the Kenny Dalglish's goal at Anfield for Scotland in 1977 against Wales that makes it 2-0. That's one of my earliest football memories. And Big Nizzy's got now. I watched that one, man, and uncle on the sofa in my living room in Ardrossan. That's Big Nizzy's goal. There's 2 goals that always make me cry. Every time I watch them, every time I hear the commentators getting carried away with it. It just always gives me chokes me up at the back of my throat. It's beautiful away kit. Rangers really get the away kit wrong a lot of times throughout our history, but that was a proper Rangers looking away kit. The first goal was beautiful.
That was a great goal, wasn't it? Oh, what a finish.
And Hateley getting sent off straight after it, and you're like, oh, here we go, and Lorenzo Stallings equalises, and you're thinking, oh no, but that was the way the Champions League was for us for a few years. It was just really intense, really tight games. We only won Champions League group stage games by 1 goal up until we beat PSV 4-1 that night. And that, when it takes that bounce off that bit of turf, and it was deserved, by the way. The big man's got the cheek to run down to the bench and celebrate with Walter and saying that, I know, and quite right, I know, no cheek about it at all. It's absolutely magical, and that was one of the most magical experiences of my life was that tournament. Even though I was at the Marseille game, but I didn't get a ticket for the CSKA Moscow game or the game that night. We ended up a goal away for the Champions League final, and it was
gutted.
In the rain as well. That kind of lovely intense. Like the night against Leipzig was the same thing. Kind of rain and muck, blood and snotters. It was just it was brutal. It was intense. They were up to dirty tricks, and we came through. And of course, had Hateley not been sent off, he would have played against Marseille and against CSKA. We probably, the ifs and buts, every chance we could have gone through to play the final against his old club, Milan. But magical night, mate. Magical.
Absolutely. Fast forward.
I hardly remember it, really.
Absolutely. You're certainly giving me that impression. Fast forward to 2001, and of course, we're about to speak about the match tomorrow at Fir Park. Rangers travelled to Motherwell on the 17th of March 2001 and beat them 2-1. Fabrice Fernandes scored with almost his first touch. Great, wonderful long-range effort. And the winner, the last minute of the game that afternoon, came through Bob Malcolm with his first goal for the club. So Rangers came away 2-1 winners. Can you, and I don't like asking you questions, I think you'll know the answer to this. There was one player who played in both games, one for Rangers and once against Rangers. You tell me what it was?
Both games? What both games?
He played both games. He played in the Bruges game at Ibrox.
Oh, right.
And he played in the Motherwell game at Fir Park. And he played for Rangers at Ibrox. And he played for Motherwell in the second game.
Oh, who would have played for Motherwell? Oh. Nah.
The goalie.
What?
The goalie.
Oh, Gorham. For God's sake.
Absolutely.
That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. So I was thinking up the deeper trivia. I think there's 4 guys in a part. We ended up we played 4 games total for Rangers. The Finnish midfield boy and
that's right. So it's funny you say that because the team. So I'll go through the team for the Bruges game first, which incidentally we lined up 1-11. Goodness me. Andy Gorham, Scott Nesbitt, Neil Murray, who I've seen pictures of recently, and wow. Richard Gough, Dave McPherson, John Brown, Trevor Stevens, Stuart McCall, Ali McCoist, Mark Hateley, Ian Durant. The lineup for the Motherwell game in 2001: Stephen Kloss, Barry Ferguson, Bert Conterman, Scott Wilson, Sergio Perino, Corey Andrew Flo, Kenny Miller, Alan Johnston, Marcus Gale, Bob Malcolm, and Yanni Capilla.
Capilla, that's the Finnish fella, isn't it? Aye. I know, what a team, what a lineup. And the first one,
I know.
Plenty of good guys. You look at Andy Gorham and Stephen Kloss too, they're absolutely amazing Rangers goalies. And you get Perini, he played in the 97 Champions League final for Juventus as well, absolutely tremendous. I remember Fernandes' goal. It didn't turn into was the too good a season all in, but no. I think we all remember that. That must be a trivia question, guys who are just remembered. You remember their name for one goal, they scored for us. It
really was a cracking effort. It was a beautiful effort. I think I was looking at the footage of it earlier on. I think it was something like his second touch of the ball, and he literally only arrived a couple of days before on loan, if memory serves me right. And he was just thrown in. Advocat obviously thought he could have done a turn, and sure enough.
That's it. I actually went the old, before they did up Easter Road. When it was that East terracing that used to be massive at Easter Road, like the 70s, and they cut it down, then they eventually put a roof on it. I went there one day. I think we were playing the Sunday or something, and Andy Gorham was playing for Motherwell against Hibs at Easter Road, and I just adored Gorham. That's why I'm embarrassed I never got that bit of trivia there, mate. I actually went along specifically. I paid into Easter Road to watch Hibs against Motherwell, just so I could watch Andy Gorham. One more time, they were, what a goalie!
An incredible goalie, the greatest ever. I think it's absolutely fair to say. You can say it with confidence now indeed. So listen, Alex, tomorrow we go for our second trip to Fir Park. First trip, of course, came right in the middle of the Champions League shenanigans at earlier on the season, pre-Christmas, and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Rangers went there in October, if memory serves me right. I don't have the date in front of me, but we won 2-1 with a wonderful Malik Tillman solo effort, and Lundstrom, of course, scored that afternoon as well. Didn't play that greatly that afternoon, which has been a bit of a common theme for him this season. Off the bat, you would take a 2-1 victory tomorrow now, wouldn't you? It's just all about getting 3 points at this stage of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely. we definitely have to win. That is the priority, Scott. But just like you're saying, this at the top of the programme, there's a whole kind of swathe of the Rangers support out there just now, seriously unhappy in any kind of setback. I mean, after we beat Wraith Rovers 3-0 last week, I thought that was fair enough. I thought it was a sign of, kind of more progress, seeing as we've struggled in every cup game we've played this season, really. Every domestic cup game, we went out there, we won 3-0, we've done the job. Wraith Rovers were on the same points, I think, as Partick Thistle at the time we played Thistle, and it took us to 5 minutes from the end to get the winner against Thistle. So I was quite chuffed. So I'm worried that even if we go out there and, as you say, win 2-1 again tomorrow, that will be rumbles. It'll be rumbles. I think we have to go and put in a bit of a performance. But you're right, though. I mean, as long as we get the business done, especially we're now going into the international break. There'll not be a lot going on for a couple of weeks. It's really vital that we keep the pressure on Celtic, and narrow it to 6 points, and that Hibs obviously will give them the hardest game possible when they kick off at 3 o'clock. I want them, shivering with fear that we've narrowed the gap again. But I think we've got to do the business. And Motherwell, they're improving. They've definitely turned a major corner under Kettlewell. But then so have we. So it's probably the same kind of difference between the teams as was back in October. I was on holiday at that point. I was down in Ambleside. At that point, we played Motherwell that Sunday. And actually, I never saw the game until I come back up the road, and I wasn't very impressive. But what a goal from Tillman! It shows you what he does, and we Lundstrom gets the goal and all that. But it was one of the games I was at that point. I was like, well, we've won. And then we had I think it was Tuesday or the Wednesday night, we played Dundee at Ibrox. And I watched that on the laptop doing an Ambleside in the League Cup, and it was only 1-0. Steve Davies scores early on, and we get worse and worse as the game went on, to the point we're chucking it. And that was the kind of moment over the two games that you're thinking, I'm kind of back in Gio. I can make a case for them all the time, but actually watching us is getting worse and worse. So that's why. Yeah, we want to win 2-1. We'll take any kind of win tomorrow, as you say, mate. But getting a wee bit of style in there, and a wee bit, a bit of a more kind of confident scoreline, a bit more kind of difference between us and them come the end of the game would suit me a lot better. And I think we just need to get a bit of a feel-good factor going into this international break.
One of the things that's kind of been bounced around, I think, and it was the gaffer spoke about it sort of post-match last week when he almost indicated that now that John Souttar was of a fashion that he was reasonably fit and seemed like he could play, which is great. There's a possibility of maybe dropping to a back three, maybe give us a bit more protection there and allowing the wing backs to have even more sort of bouts of freedom to thrash forward. How do you feel about that? Maybe dropping from a 2. And the reason I ask is that Goldson and Davies have largely been really comfortable together. So I think if he does go to a 3, particularly when, as we say, the sort of support are a wee bit angsty just now, there's definitely potential to break something that's not needing broken. Are you with me?
Yeah, and part of me is, Michael Beale fancies himself as a bit of kind of mind games guru. I think I always can take a pinch of salt. Anything Beale says about anything Beale says, basically, just take it with a pinch of salt. I think this is the great debate. This is, until we beat Celtic, it's going to be kind of in the balance. If we lose any of these coming games to Celtic, it will go right back away for Michael Beale, I think, because there's already a feeling that he talks too much. Yeah. He says more than he actually wants to say. I've tried to kind of review that as these times went on, and you can't argue with the results, except maybe 2 of them. Yeah. I'm wondering if maybe this is part of it, though. I'm wondering maybe this is part of he's saying too much, but he knows what he's saying. He's definitely throwing stuff out there and trying to kind of hide little kind of grenades that he's dropping for opposition managers. Stuart Kettlewell he's come in, kind of turned things round at Motherwell since Stevie Hamill. They get beat 3-1 after Wraith Rovers in the Scottish Cup, at Starks Park, and Stevie Hamill walked that night. That's a thing. That's a thing, by the way, isn't it? That's becoming a thing. This is like managers walking right after. Jim Goodwin literally walked across the pitch at Easter Road with his trainers and his wee bag, like he's got his own motor waiting for him outside. He's not even getting the bus back up to Pittodrie. When they sacked him. I think the fella Fox at Dundee United, he was almost the same when Ross County gubbed him. And I think I remember Stuart Kettlewell himself when he was at Ross County a couple of years back. He'd been joint manager when he got promoted, and then he was manager on his own at County, and it started going wrong for them. And I'm sure he was on Sports. He did the post-match interview in the tunnel saying, that's it, basically, I'm away.
I'm done.
It's a thing, But I think he's Stuart Kettlewell's come in there, taken over, and he's turned them round. He's got the job full time. What was it? They beat St Mirren. They lost to Wraith Rovers Motherwell in the Scottish Cup.
Yeah,
they lost 3-1, so I think that means we're supposed to win 6-1 tomorrow, which we did last season. And then they beat St Mirren midweek. He took over temporary, and like 3 or 4 days later, they beat St Mirren at Fir Park. They beat Motherwell, so they beat Hearts 2-0.
Yeah.
Well, then
that's a huge result for them.
That was huge. And then Ross County, when they beat Ross County, the only game they played in March, they beat Ross County up at Dingwall. That was absolutely massive. It's put that wee bit of distance between themselves. I think there's 6 points between the bottom 3 in the league just now. So, and this guy Van Veen, Kevin Van Veen, the Dutch fella who plays up front, he's a kind of all-rounder. I think he's in the best form of his life. I think he's got 17 goals or something this season. So he's playing really well. He's a kind of poacher, target man, everything. Or a kind of slower scale or a slower pace than you'd want for anybody at Rangers, but he'll do a job if you give him a chance. With the big fella Obika up front as well. They've got Blair Spittle sitting in the hole behind him, and they've got the long departed Jeremy Goss. He's in there as well. He's been doing well for them. He's been doing well for Motherwell. So I don't know if this is some sort of tactic. My tactical knowledge isn't deep enough to know what Bale's trying to achieve with this. Yeah. But I'm watching Rangers against teams like Motherwell. We're basically getting 1 at the back, as it is. Right. So 3 at the back is a total misnomer. It's all about getting, in games like this, it's about getting as many players forward as possible. I don't see how having 3 centre halves who are struggling to get back if we get caught in a counter attack is any better, than having 2 fullbacks. And it's obviously, Borna, with Borna, the big thing is if Borna's wife's having a kid, he's at the way Yilmaz is supposed to be coming in. You would want him to come into a system that's established. You don't want Yilmaz to be coming in and have this, the whole team's getting rejigged at the back. What does it say about the wing backs? The idea is they're then basically midfielders, which they are for most of the games like this anyway.
Yeah.
But it's the Stephen Whittaker dilemma, as I call it, whereas Whittaker was always so good coming forward, but Alan Hutton was the same thing. But anytime you pushed him, actually his starting position was in midfield, you found out that he needed that run. He needed that start, the wee kind of runway of coming from his own back 4 and piling forward. He's got a head of steam going by the time he hits the halfway line. He can start the slalom, and same as Tav does just now. So I don't really know how it's going to work. There'll be guys out there who know that better than me, but I don't see any need for it just now. And as I say, Michael Beale, day one, his very first game in charge was a mid-season friendly against Bayer Leverkusen in December during the World Cup. And it was, we had Leon King and Leon King and Sands at the back. That was our centre halves. I'm standing outside doing a stupid pod, reaction pod, saying, well, that's we're back. We're playing Hibs on Thursday night. So it's basically we're down to the bare bones at the back. We get Sands. Meanwhile, Beale's inside giving it. But Connor Golson's nearly fit. He's coming back a lot earlier. And Ben Davies he's ready to go. He's ready to play. We played Hibs. Ben Davies come on for the last 10 minutes. That was it. It was Sands and Sands and King. So it's a habit of talking things up to get a positive spin in things. I think he's trying to confuse opposition managers as well with a lot of this pattern. But if you were going to go 3 at the back, I don't know why you would advertise it the way he's advertised it, unless it was to try and fool somebody. Because Motherwell are going to try something different tomorrow. Maybe he's trying to get into mind games that are beyond me when it comes to tactical stuff, but I don't see any need for it just now, mate.
Yeah, no, I feel like as I say, the big thing for me is that it splits up a relationship that's been working, and one of the I think we've had scrutiny this season on has been, certainly for the Gio part of the season, was the lack of a partnership at centre half, because as you say, it was Sands and King. We had Lundstrom fitting in there on occasion. So we've never had, up until recently, up until Beale came in, to be honest with you, we've never had that formed duo, if you like. And I think at last this season we have a pairing there that looks quite decent. I think Golson and Davies have played really well together. I do worry about maybe introducing an additional dynamic to that. And I think John Souttar's a really good big player. When we signed him, I was quite delighted. I think the thing he does have is he's got the ability to carry the ball from centre half into midfield. So I maybe wonder if he sees him almost as a sitter in between the 2 centre halves and whoever's playing centre mid, and sort of give Golson and Davies the chance to look for Souttar and let him play out from there because he is comfortable with the ball at his feet. We're interested to see what he does, but my personal opinion is not to break something that isn't needing fixed. And I think we have a good sort of blend in there just now.
And I apologise to any tactical gurus out there, anybody who just basically knows their arse for their elbow when it comes to tactics. Maybe the claim about I'm just so fixated on us having two wing backs. Maybe is the idea that three at the back is literally three defenders. We're going to dump the wing backs. We're going to dump. I don't know. We're getting more actual midfielders in there, Tillman and Cantwell kind of thing. You can see why they're trying to accommodate them. I do suspect that we're trying to kind of future-proof or plan for Tav kind of moving away, or he's no. I still think Tav's absolutely vital to everything we do. The guy's, I think he's another guy who's totally underappreciated. This whole team, I think, is actually, if there's one player that's built around it, probably is James Tavernier. He's the energy, he's the kind of heartbeat. But I don't know, maybe just having a sight this season of what it's like if Tav's coming off the boil a bit. I'm sure he's been carrying an injury. It never get admitted to, but it looks like he had been carrying an injury, and it really cost us. So I don't know if this is some way of planning for that, compensating for Tav needing a rest. But I would think if he's serious about it, you take the 2 weeks that we're off the international break to get it drilled on the training field, and you wouldn't try and put it into practice tomorrow. Yeah,
I know. I fully agree. Listen, Patrick's on Sunday night. He is the tactical guru. So everything you've just said, he'll rip that to bits on Sunday night.
Absolutely, 100%. I'll enjoy listening to it as well.
So, listen, one of the things I think you mentioned Nico Raskin right at the start of the show. I think everyone's largely really happy with him, impressed with his effort, his dig, his tenacity. I particularly like the way that he goes hunting for the ball from the off. That's something I think we've been missing for a long time. The existing midfielders were quite happy to sit and let the ball come to them, whereas he's exactly the opposite. He goes hunting and he gets the ball more often than not. Looks like he's going to miss out tomorrow. This, I think, has the potential to be a little bit embarrassing for the club, because yesterday wasn't mentioned in the club presser at all. News broke last night via the written media. I think it was our friend of the show, Chris Jack, that released that he is he's doubtful, wouldn't make it, was doubtful, and Beale had said to the written press that there's a good chance he'd be okay for it. Today we've seen pictures just tonight about 5 o'clock. There's something popped up in social media that he's halfway back to Belgium. So that episode is a bit embarrassing for the club, and that whole, we've heard about communication for a long time now. This is an example of just where things are falling down a little bit.
I mean, they've moved the press conferences to the Thursday. So if a guy gets injured Thursday night, they're going to have another more training after they have these pressers between that and match day. So if something goes wrong, I would be more worried, rather than the kind of political or the communication aspect of the club. I'd be more worried just about the fact that he's injured. Has he caught the disease already? Do you know what I mean? That's the kind of conspiracy theory that theorising that I am getting on board with is what the hell is happening with so many players being injured. But this is also, in terms of the politics of the thing, how fans are reacting to it, we have to remember that this is going hand in hand with, suddenly we've got too many players for a lot of fans. Suddenly, a lot of the stuff I see on Twitter, and I'm being facetious, by the way. The other day I put up a nice wee post about, nice wee tweet about Scott Arfield, and this is what happens, like 300 odd folk liked it. And you can see that now. Mr. Musk has really improved Twitter. You can see the views now. You can see like 30 odd thousand folk have just viewed it and had no opinion whatsoever. I think there's like 7 folk actually come on and said, "No, I'll get rid of him." And that in itself is just a fear. We have this fear that the very thing you're talking about with Raskin being a breath of fresh air. I think we're just getting to a point where we're almost kind of victimising anybody who's over the age of 29 at Ibrox. That guy's been here too long. I think the too long thing is including 55, including a European final. We need to kind of put the brakes on that. But I think the big thing you're talking about Raskin, what we like about him, is a breath of fresh air, because I think apart from anything else, he just has the air of a wee boy who wants to get ripped in and doesn't see what the problem is. Whereas too many of our players look like they've got the scar tissue. They've had too many games where they're going to the sorry Dougie, the low block, and they don't know how to. they don't know how to. I don't know what else to call it, Dougie. I listen to Patrick. If he calls it that, I'll call it a low block. And that's a lot of players look as if they've just had it too long, right? We've got to go to Livingston, we've got to go to, Ross County, we've got to break this team doing blah, blah, blah. Whereas Raskin and Cantwell have just looked like, come on, we're playing football, enjoy ourselves, just let's get stuck in. And also, as you say, more importantly, he has that ability to just take the ball, turn, move it forward. But he's needing babysat as well. I think there's definitely, you can see that that's why I'm just desperate that Ryan Jack maintains his fitness, even to replace Raskin tomorrow, but to be alongside him as well, because Cantwell can move. Cantwell can just play everywhere, and he looks like he can look after himself anyway. So he's a breath of fresh air. His attitude's fantastic, but it's early days. And the thing is, the manager's getting slaughtered for not picking him for the League Cup final, and then if the boy's got an injury because he's been getting played every game since, you can't blame the manager for that as well. It's it's going to happen, but I'm just looking for some sort of, it's a fit up, that photograph was taken, 6 months ago, it's a wind up, I'm not believing it to see. And I don't think anybody should actually believe anything that comes out of Rangers or Michael Beale until we see the starting 11 on the parquet on a Saturday these days. It keeps it interesting.
I'm not a traveller by any matter of means, but he couldn't fly, and this is it, I'm aware of that, he couldn't fly to Belgium tonight and fly back tomorrow morning and still be involved tomorrow, could he? Probably could. Well,
he's a box-to-box midfielder. He's getting bags of energy. That's probably just, I fancy a bit of duty free. There's a particular chocolate. These Belgians, I love their chocolate. I've got to have it. I'm getting back. I'm getting over there. I'm getting back. Sharp style. But it could be another. It could be another Michael Beale feint. It could be another Michael Beale sleight of hand. I go and get a photograph taken at the airport. Motherwell will think we're playing Kamara and Lundstrom tomorrow. Firing about them, mate. No,
oh, brilliant! I love that. Listen, one of the things, and you mentioned Todd Cantwell, who again, a second Ross Wilson January signing, we have to say, has been really, really good since he came in, playing really, really well. Enjoyed watching him. Again, sort of similar to Raskin, has taken a little bit of time to develop a standard of fitness that allows him to play his game properly. I think we're seeing that now. Interestingly, at the same time as Malik Tillman has been out and is now back available for tomorrow, I don't think you see both play tomorrow. If you're picking one or other, Alex, and I know you're a fan of Tillman, but I know you're also impressed with what you've seen from Cantwell recently, who are you choosing to go with tomorrow? Because I don't think both play.
I'm definitely picking Cantwell. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not writing off the possibility that both play. To be honest with you, Scott, I think the League Cup final, as much as the kind of self-created controversy, because when we lose a game like that, we have to find a scapegoat. There has to be one thing to pin it on. As much as that was about Raskin not getting picked to start, I thought when Raskin come on, he got a bit overwhelmed early doors. Celtic players were on top of him, and that's what I thought. As a guy who looks like he's no play, but he then come on to a great game, Nico Raskin, and he dug Borna out, probably his best bit in the match, where he covered for him at one point in that League Cup final. But I think the material effect is no way a controversial decision at the time, because, as you say, Cantwell, who was just starting, and Tillman was the man. I think the biggest material effect on the game was what we saw for Todd Cantwell. If he'd actually started, a decision we'd all have been throwing the prams out before kick-off. If Tillman hadn't started that day, I think that could have actually made the biggest difference on the day. Cantwell and Raskin, I'm scared to get too ahead of myself, not just because they're going to pick up the injury disease Ibrox at Auchenhowie, but also because it's early doors. It's still we're still a month basically into both of them. We're already getting this wee thing of, oh, look how well the two of them got on. I know we're all sitting here. I bet there's. I mean, I'm not going to be sexist about this. Obviously, masses of female Rangers fans, but this. I bet there's all these guys sitting at home, total bears, who like slag their misses for watching crappy romances, on Channel 5 on a Sunday afternoon, and sitting giving it. Oh, look at Todd and Nico. They're cuddling each other. They're the best mates. Oh, I love it. They're such a great couple. Don't get me tattooed on it. We're getting too ahead of ourselves with this stuff, I think, But I think the two of them are absolutely magic. And I can't, the thing for me is he looks like, whereas Raskin just looks like, this is how I've always played. I want to get stuck in about it. I want to enjoy my football. Cantwell looks like that, but also I've got something to prove. And he did get irked early doors by a question at one of the pressers, asking him if he'd basically been, we had an idea of him not being committed. He wasn't. He was maybe a bit of kind of flash player, a bit of a kind of, cherry on top type player. Basically, we were questioning his work ethic. By God, he's shoved that down my throat. He's absolutely everywhere on that park. He cannot do enough. And again, he looks like he's enjoying himself, and that spreads to the rest of the team. Only thing for me is you've got to wear the number 13 jersey, you've got to wear the Gerd Muller jersey, the Eusebio jersey, you've got to start getting some goals there.
Absolutely.
And Beale was telling him that last week, just before he set one up for Scotty Arfield. But he's absolutely magnificent. I just want Cantwell must play. Cantwell must play. Whether we put on, we try to get Tillman in there as well. That's another question.
Aye, absolutely. Listen, before we move on to the debate that's came out over ticket allocation or supporter allocation for the last two remaining league games for the Old Firm this season, I'm keen to know where you stand on Morelos' contract situation as it stands currently, in the sense that we know he's not signed anything, despite there being rumours last week to suggest there is. There is interest, I think, there from Sevilla for him to go to Spain. Would be a fantastic move for Alfredo, we have to say. Do you have a preference just now? We've obviously got a value from Alfredo considering what he came in for. I think we've absolutely had the best of Alfredo. I don't think he goes anywhere else and gives us the Porto performances, the Feyenoord performances, the Dortmund in Germany performances. I don't think you get them anywhere else.
I don't know, mate. I think that's, if I'm looking at this as a neutral who for some reason has been watching Rangers for the last 5 years, I'm thinking Alfredo Morelos looks like a player who needs a move. He looks like a guy who needs to be revitalised. He's wanted away. He's thought he's getting away. When he's found out he wasn't getting away, it's hurt him. He's been disappointed, and he's been in a bit of a huff with Rangers. Then he's played his way back in at the thought of not getting a game at all for us under various managers. It's the same old thing with Alfredo, and I know this is where a lot of fans are I'm the same. I was the same after the League Cup final. The man scores one goal in the League Cup final, but he's just not done enough. He can bounce Carter Vickers off the ball, who's like the biggest guy Celtic have got. But he's got to wait for Carter Vickers to come to him, because Alfie can't move fast enough to get properly and about their defence. And you keep thinking about him scoring the goals. The two against Feyenoord and De Kuip are absolutely iconic. The goal he scores against Porto in that same group, just the way he lets it bounce off his foot. It's absolutely a beautiful goal. I always see Alfie as he's kind of like, you've got a toddler, you've got a chubby wee spoilt brat of a toddler who you love to bits, and you just want to get the wee cheeks and go, yeah, big, and you just want to pinch his wee chubby cheeks and all that. And at other times, you want to just send him upstairs when he's dinner, because he's just totally wrecked the place. You know what I mean? Getting sent off at Easter Road and what have you, but you still love him. And I just I'm sick of wishing. We have too many players, and this is where I understand a lot of the supporter ire. So I say that you're on a podcast for 2 minutes and you start talking about supporters as if they're some disembodied group that a massive nutcase part of. That's why guys like myself get upset with Alfie and get upset with the team in general just now, because we're sick of so many players who could be better, have done it before but don't do it enough. Lack visible commitment, and then demonstrate that they could take anybody to bits if they wanted to on their day. I think you just need to look at Yanis Hadji, who a lot of people are wanting. If somebody's got to go, they're quite happy for Hadji to go. But look at how that boy's come back. Not a pick on him. Alfie's obviously a big boned fella like myself, who obviously likes his scran. Hadji looks like a skinny wee fella by nature, but he's come back after a year out, and he looks like he's not the same player obviously yet, but straight away he's setting up a goal last week. Once he gets his match fitness back, and I think he's shown you where Alfredo's going wrong with the fitness and not putting the effort in. He's gone to Sevilla, then he's not gone to Sevilla, and blah blah blah. I think I wouldn't be surprised. It'd be the very kind of move. A Europa League team in Sevilla are the Europa League team.
Absolutely, of course they are. Yeah.
That would be the kind of move that I would see Alfredo getting. He's not going to go to a Champions League club, and I don't think he'd be first choice at Sevilla either. He'd probably get a while to prove himself, and else he'd be at the door there. But maybe the Spanish speaking, he's Colombian, obviously would help him. He's never been the greatest with the English. But I love Alfie. I hate having to write him off. I don't want to write him off. I think he could come on tomorrow and bag a hat trick, and he's got it to do. I would love to start, to try and get him rehabilitated, whatever. But I think he lacks the motivation, and I think we've given him too many chances. I can't quite write him off, mate, but at the same time, I can see exactly why I wouldn't be bothered. Listen, sorry, I'll round this off. The big two, it's Kent and Morelos, isn't it? That's the big two we're all talking about.
Yeah.
And if you had to just pick one, it's going to be Kent all the time for me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel agree with that. I think, as I kind of suggested, I think we've seen the best of Morelos, and I think we've got the best of Morelos. The sort of the two headers in Feyenoord, the goal against Legia Warsaw, some really, really good moments. The reality is, excuse me, he's had a few farts as well, to be perfectly honest with you, where things just haven't been so good, and we just can't have that. Do you know what I mean? You're leading the line for Rangers, you have to be at it. That's just the way. And I think it opens up a greater discussion, because I don't think Cholak's the answer either necessarily, which comes back to something I said earlier on the podcast, where the summer is going to be huge. Do you know what I mean? Michael Beale has I've said elsewhere that I think this summer is a Dick Advocat-esque turnover of playing staff, and I think it has to be because there's some guys there, and you've alluded to it yourself, I've just I don't want to say uninterested, but there's a staleness that's developed about them. It was almost like they got 55, and then the Europa League final was the very, very top of the hill, and they're just knackered with it now.
Aye, I mean, we're talking about Patrick Cascade, great friend of the show, and everybody will know him on Twitter. Will have you absolute football expert. And I said once before, I was talking to Patrick about this, and I lucky to have him on the show once, about how him and David Fraser, another guy who's on the show at the time, I think, says some stuff that always kind of makes me go, oh, aye. Makes you change your mind that way. You go, oh, I've never seen that before. And they were talking about Yilmaz and how he was just like head and shoulders above Borna. And the stuff, the way they were described it, I thought, oh, Christ, you actually got a great point there. You know, I'd never seen anything wrong from Yilmaz, because obviously he's only limited time playing. But I think when you see what Yilmaz could offer, and then when you see what Raskin and Cantwell do, I get the point. Then I'm getting older. It's getting harder for me to keep processing seasons quickly. To me, we're talking about 92, 93 season, and I'm talking about it like it was yesterday, mate.
Right.
So for me, I'm like, why are we getting rid of Scott Arfield? He's only 18, almost, as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? Folk out there are like, Alec, he's been here for like 4 years. He's 34-year-old. He's got to go. And I think that harshness, because Scott Arfield will be a fantastic player off the bench, as he proved last week. A great guy to have around the stadium. We shouldn't underestimate that. A great guy to have in the dressing room, somebody who gets it and understands what it's all about. But I think part of the willingness to get rid of everybody who's over like age 29 is because people can see Yilmaz, Raskin, and Cantwell. There's something new there. There's something really fresh there, and I feel terrible about leaving off a segment talking about Alfredo with a kind of, I would let Alfie go, because what he went through, basically, the racism he basically went through from mainstream broadcasters when he arrived here, the hypocrisy of the way he was treated versus like a Scott Brown, for example, who would go about, so self-conscious, playing up to crowds and playing up to fouling opposition players on the deck, and we were told he was a character, whereas Alfie was insane and was letting us all down. That kind of stuff. He's been through all that. As well, he's in a really hard time of it, so it's not a surprise that his form's fluctuated in that sense. But I think that's all part of. I can see when Patrick was talking about Yilmaz, when I see Cantwell and Raskin, how they've just arrived, the finished product. You're thinking, they then show up the lack of freshness.
Aye,
Jack, Lundstrom, even these guys we're winning all these games under Michael Beale, perhaps by the single goal when Michael Beale first arrives. And that's down to Michael Beale. That's a testament to how he's bringing the best out of these guys. He's picking them up from how knackered they were under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, how downbeat they were from that compressed, brutal Champions League group stage. But with Raskin and Cantwell, you've got shining examples of we've got no baggage, physical or mental. We're just arriving, bang, ready to go, and you can see those little glimmers of the Michael Beale vision. And you're like, I don't know where he's going to get the money. I don't think we can sell enough players to finance everything Michael Beale would want to do. But you can see, there is a new way ahead here. This team is breaking up. This team does have to go. The Steven Gerrard team, who probably served us more vitally than any other team in our history. But I can see the new way ahead. And you're right, Beale is going to have to bring in a lot of players. And I just hope he can get enough out of this season, particularly the Scottish Cup, particularly not losing another Old Firm game, to get him into next season with a sense, with the fans completely behind him.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good stuff there. I mean, one thing I would say with Raskin and Cantwell, and probably Ridvan, as we say, because he's now just coming into a game with every new dawn. There's a bit of sadness because there's a resignation that the people that these guys are coming in to replace, who have sort of served us so well, are now, I don't want to say being put out to pasture, that's horrible, but their time's been and it's gone, and it's time to pass on the torch, if you like. So
that's what I'm talking about, Scott. The age thing with me, I need to be kind of counterintuitive and analyse myself objectively. People are slagging Borna Barris. It's these terrible performances against Celtic at Parkhead, and I'm like, well, he set up the 2 goals when one at Parkhead. He got the 2 assists. But was that 2019? Because to me, 2019 was like lunchtime. You know what I mean? So
absolutely, yeah.
So basically, it is time to move on, and we can see now, I think, the players who are going to get moved on.
So before we do move on to the Old Firm ticket allocation, just finally, obviously we play tomorrow at Fir Park. Any predictions from you? Do you fancy us strongly?
I am the biggest jinx in the world, mate. So I'll say, I'll say it's Todd Cantwell's going to get a hat trick tomorrow, and that'll be enough to get us the point.
Well played. We'll take that.
Scotty Arfield get a hat trick there. Sakala get a hat trick there. I'll take Cantwell to get one tomorrow. I mean, I would like us to go out there. We've got a good thing. We play teams that are on form. It's been happening to us all season.
Yeah,
I think St Mirren were heading for third when they came to Ibrox early season, beat them 4-0. Aberdeen were doing really well, came to Ibrox, beat them 4-1.
Yeah.
Hearts at Tynecastle, 3-0. And Hibs were on a great run when we played them and we pumped them 4-1. So I hope Motherwell get a wee bit cocky. I hope they come for us, and I hope it's the same scenario where we can get there and just at least a 3-goal win.
I think if it's the Gersnet Rangers that went to Tynecastle and Easter Road, we should be okay tomorrow. I think we can say that with a bit of comfort, and fingers crossed we're right. Listen, last thing for the pod tonight, and we're at the time, it's 10 to 10. And this is a bit of a stirrer, to be perfectly honest with you. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. The Old Firm allocation for away fans for the 2 remaining league games of the season between now and the end of the year. There will be no away support allowed, so we won't be allowed to go to their place. They won't be allowed to come to our place. And the quote is due to safety and security concerns. Couple of things. From my perspective, it sounds like there is a bit of attempted bartering from one board to another, i.e. we want the Broom loan when we come to your place. And I don't think the Rangers board are going to sort of roll over and have their belly tickled on this, which I understand. And in some respects I agree with, some respects I don't, because I do enjoy the atmosphere of the Old Firm game, and I certainly like getting it right up them. What I would say is that with all this going on today, it hasn't changed the plan for the end of April when we go 50-50 at Hampden for the Scottish Cup semi-final. So there's some inconsistencies in the general makeup of this story, Alex. I wonder where you stand about having them in our place and us going to their place.
Yeah, I think it's completely fair, because we had away fans at the first 2 games, away fans at Parkhead earlier this season, away fans at Ibrox in the 2nd of January. It's 50-50 at Hampden for League Cup final. It's 50-50 for the Scottish Cup semi-final. Now we've got no away fans at Parkhead, no away fans at Ibrox. Total common sense. No one's been hard done by, and therefore there will be no complaints about this from anyone or any Rangers supporter, any Celtic supporter for the rest of the season. I think it's perfect, and I think it's appropriate. St Patrick's Day, the people of Ireland, the two communities from the north and the south, they're coming together to agree that there'll be no more silliness. I think that the away supports are at a point now where you might as well just cancel them. And Hampden, obviously, it's a neutral venue. It's a cup final. You can't have an away support as such. So it's going to have to be 50-50 because of the size of Rangers and Celtic. But yeah, it's at the point just now. It's been heading towards us. Just you may as well have the amount of policing involved in getting the 800, 1200. I don't even know the numbers. Some people out there really know the history of this, and they're really right into it in terms of they've had more fans than us, and allowed into our place and blah blah blah. And I think when you work out the percent, like Parkhead holds like 9,000 more people generally than some people actually go, kind of calculated out. It's basically just the day of the away fans at Rangers Celtic games, the Old Firm game is over. Yeah. As far as the league's concerned, it's about whether we revert to. You can't actually revert to the way it was. The thing is, when I first started going to Old Firm games back in 19 Canteen, my first one was 1984, and that's nearly 40 years ago. It was at Ibrox, but Celtic used to get like the whole of the west enclosure. They would get a bit of the main stand, the whole of the Brimlin, and they would get like, I think the section red and the Govan, the top and bottom. You know, and we went to Parkhead, which could hold about 67,000 at that time. It was just all terracing. We would get the whole of the Rangers end, obviously, which was it held about 18,000, I think, at that point. And you would get a bit of the main stand as well. So we didn't get quite as big a proportion. But the thing that got me was they were coming to Ibrox and they were sitting down, apart from at that point the enclosure was terraced, they were in total luxury, basically, compared to their own stadium, you know, and they were getting housed there for years. And I think a lot of people, there was a lot of slagging for Celtic fans. That's because you couldn't fill your own ground at that time. You needed us to come, but it was actually the way. That's the way kind of generally it was for years. I think older Rangers fans than me, if there are still any alive, will remember that I think we used to get a bit of the jungle. They told me that we used to get a bit of the jungle, the old jungle terracing at Parkhead as well as Rangers End. And I've seen footage for the kind of 60s. Rangers fans get almost like a quarter, if not towards like a third of the old Celtic Park main stand, as well as having the Rangers End. And it was just a general thing. It was Rangers are playing Celtic. The two supports are massive. They're going to come together and they're almost half and half, even at league games. And it's just went back and back ever since. You've then got the attendant pettiness, the attendant kind of vindictiveness, and that's another pod on its own, Scott. What I would say is the point I had when I think Ross and I did Ross hosted me on a pod at the time of the friendly and the Sydney Super Cup being announced. And I would say, I don't like the atmosphere at Old Firm games. I think it's hateful, it's backwards, it's embarrassing at times, and it can be murderous. It can lead to a lot of. That's why I'm terrified about that thing that happened earlier in the week about the boy getting threatened. But the thing that must be said about that is, I've done this tweet. I've kind of tweeted to say something about it, and the tweet underneath this fella wanting to attack a piper because he plays tunes for Rangers fans and Celtic fans. It was just all Celtic fans saying, "Grow up! Don't be so stupid." Getting the guy told, totally commonsensical. The vast majority of them. When it comes to behaviour at football, anyway, we're obviously more divergent when it comes to our tastes in football. But I don't like encouraging that kind of atmosphere, and it seems like it seems almost at times I feel you'd be better off with away fans to encourage it, but the two sets of supporters are so kind of hothouse these days by social media. Kind of echo chamber that people come into football grounds now next to me who have read a different thread on social media from me and are absolutely raging about something that I have no idea about. I didn't know because I'm not in the same chat room or whatever it is. I don't follow the same person on Twitter. And it's kind of difficult to know whether we need to get both sets of fans together again in significant numbers at these games to kind of sober each other up, or are we just going to lead to all-out war? Because I would Celtic supporting mates, guys that I worked with who've been all right and all that. And that's what we talk about. It's the, what's his name? The Scottish comedian, Celtic supporting.
Frankie Boyle? No, Kevin Bridges.
Kevin Bridges. He did the whole thing about, taking the piss out Danny Dyer. Dyer doing the football, football's kind of hard men or whatever it is. Like one of the kind of pornographic programs where he goes to follow an Old Firm game. And it's like the best. You're actually the safest you'll ever be at a football match going to an Old Firm game because it's so well placed, even when Celtic at the whole of the Brimlin. But I don't know whether we need to keep the fans away from each other these days, or whether we should actually be upping the allocations to let the whole kind of thing blow a gasket in reality. But the other thing was the timing of the games when you're getting guys getting bevied and what have you. They stopped having them like on a Sunday before a bank holiday Monday and what have you, because it was giving folk, folk were going to get more drunk and were going to behave even worse than they usually do at these games. But it's difficult. It's really difficult. But I want to find out that the politics is obviously going to go deep. But the Celtic, the thing I was talking about with Ross back in the day was I'm quite happy for Rangers and Celtic to start playing friendlies because it would dilute the toxicity. It would show. I think this is one fixture that needs folk just to be told we are just two football teams. Every football team is a way of life to the supporters of that football team, but this needs something taken out of it. There's folk getting stabbed up and all that in town centres because of the vindictiveness behind this rivalry. But separate thing altogether is we cannot deal with this Celtic board. this Celtic board just now plays on that toxicity.
Correct.
Appeals to the lowest common denominator of their fan base. And I know we have had in the kind of revolving door of directors, we've had, since 2012, we've had Bam Potts playing up to it as well, but they've soon got hunted. And when we did the whole Old Firm thing, we know that it's pathetic and hypocritical when Celtic are getting the patent for the phrase Old Firm renewed every year and then refusing to use it in their kind of match publications. It's also a complete misunderstanding of the term as well. So to me, that just kind of shows them up. But for us to then make Celtic march out through a cardboard arch with the words Old Firm across it in plastic, when we try to behave like them, we look silly, because it's no us. It's no what we should do. It's really petty. And I don't think we should deal with that Celtic board. We shouldn't try to fight them in those kind of terms either. So that's the difficulty, because I think we have a board at Parkhead who are dangerous in the way they play with us. Rangers, decades, we didn't sign Catholics. Now that is something that we will pay the price for, quite rightly, for years. The mistrust of us, the hatred of us for Celtic fans, that's the kind of main basis of it. And I can't really argue with that. But it's like 30 odd years now since we get rid of that policy. We need to try and move on from it. But I just feel as if on a practical basis, and if we could take all the toxicity out of it, we could take all the kind of the threat, the ever-present kind of threat of violence out of an Old Firm game. The fact that we gave them a beautiful stand square behind the goals for years, and we get shoved into, it held 18,000 that terrace, the Rangers End terrace at Parkhead, but I think 17,500 managed to find itself behind a floodlight stanchion, and now they're stuck up in the corner, the Lisbon Lions stand or whatever it is, with a terrible view. And it's not just for us, it's other away fans at Parkhead as well. So from a practical point of view, I don't like giving them that advantage, but also, I don't know, I basically don't know, mate. I think just now, we've also got people in the Broomland now. That's their stand. Rangers supporters. They shouldn't be getting moved out of it. But yeah, I just feel as if the whole thing's getting out of control. I would like to think this is it being controlled. We're getting to a point where we're just bad, but I think it's just part of the pettiness that's going on between the two boards just now. Yeah. If Celtic feel that bad about us, and we don't know that it's Celtic to blame for, we don't know what's happened in these negotiations today. But if Celtic feel as bad about us that they can't say our name, they should have been in the same bloody league as us. So it's time for that kind of hypocrisy to end, and it won't. Yeah.
No, listen, I totally agree with you. It'll be interesting. I think this will roll on, indeed, probably for the next couple of weeks. Of course, we'll look at the possibility of playing them 3 times in the space of 6 weeks, which should be really interesting. I think we're all looking forward to this sport. I can't wait to have the opportunity to play them again, to be perfectly frank. However, on that comment that we're speaking about, neither club have made any comment to my knowledge, so it'll be interesting to see indeed what comes of that. Alex, I've really enjoyed having you on this Friday night. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, absolute pleasure, Scott. Lovely to talk to you again, mate. Yes,
we should say thanks to Brian Archer, who's doing lots and lots of good direction in the background. We thank him for his time this Friday night as well. Sunday night, it is Craig Ray, Colin Armstrong and Patrick Caskey will be along to decipher all of the good tactical stuff that Alex spoke to you about tonight. So make sure if you're around on Sunday night from 9:30, you can take some time out to join the guys to review the game at Fir Park tomorrow. Good luck to Rangers tomorrow. I will be back when I'm back. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Good night.